Wonderful. One more time for the record, I need you on tapes. Name, spelling, and title.
Norman Harris, Normanharris.
And you're owner of Norman's Guitars.
Guitars.
All right. So Norm, tell me, you obviously have exposure to a lot of who's who in the music, entertainment industry. How did you first come in contact with Mr. Tom Petty?
Well, actually, I played in a band with Tom's bass player, Ron Blair, before he was in the Heartbreakers for 2 years. And then our band broke up, and Ron went with Tom, and I went with another band called the Angel City Rhythm Band.
We're talking about guitars that were stolen earlier this week.
And we're all from Florida, too. I'm from
There's
Florida.
the connection.
Yeah, they're from Gainesville, I'm from Miami.
Nice. Okay, so we're talking about 5 guitars that were stolen
Right.
from Mr. Petty in Culver City.
Exactly.
Tell me how many of those were bought here originally?
Well, probably 3 of the 5 were bought here. And those guitars are very sentimental to Tom because a lot of those tunes that he recorded were on those guitars. And so we'd really like to see him get them back. Tom did, on Thursday night, right after this happened, buy a few guitars from us to replace some of the guitars that were taken. But we're hoping that we can help him get those guitars back. They're very dear to Tom, and also there's a lot of history that goes there. So, and they'd be very difficult for somebody to sell without, getting caught, because, I mean, they're serial numbered, they're easily identifiable, so it would be something that I think somebody probably will end up getting caught with. So
it's a very special instrument, not only to professionals and stars, but to the everyday common person.
absolutely, and it is the instrument that has defined rock and roll and all modern music. When you think about everybody from Eric Clapton to Jimi Hendrix, to Jimmy Page, to Jeff Beck, to on and on and on, guitar is the instrument that, is defining of modern music.
Yeah, very good point. So Mr. Petty also bought replacements from the
From
store
us,
as
yeah.
well.
Mhm.
Tell me about those guitars. Are they comparable to the ones that were sold?
Well, he bought a Rickenbacker guitar, 360 12-string, which was almost identical to the model that he had stolen, which was a blonde finish, and it was a very good sounding guitar. But I think he wanted to replace it because he needed the sound for utility purposes. But I think for the sentimental value, there is no replacing something like that.
No kidding. What would you say to somebody, somebody out there obviously knows about the guitars and stole them? What do you have to say about a crime like that?
Well, it's a crime that kind of hits you in the gut. I mean, it's not something that is just like something taken out of your house. This is something that is a history that goes with Tom Petty. When you hear all that music, those were the instruments that were played. This is something that it's kind of a heartless crime, and we'd really like to see Tom get these instruments back because they mean a lot to him, and they're part of modern music history.
Absolutely. What kind of guy is Tom Petty? You know him on a personal level.
I do. I've known Tom for a long time. He's quiet, but he's a really good guy. In fact, I work with this place called the Midnight Mission, and Tom did a concert for us for the Midnight Mission, which was for the homeless in LA, and we raised about $250,000. And it was really nice of him to do, and Tom is a big-hearted guy, and he's out to help people, and this makes it that much more painful that these things were taken from him because he is such a good guy.
He's generous. On a professional level, talk about his talent.
The thing about Tom that I think makes him the most important is his songwriting. Here's a group that's been going since the mid-'70s to today, and they're just as contemporary today as they were back then. They're still, on the charts, where most groups are playing oldies shows that were started in the '70s. Tom is not. Tom is as contemporary today as he was back then. And he has a history with Bob Dylan, with George Harrison, with the Traveling Wilburys. There's so many people that are involved in his music, Stevie Nicks, just on and on. And he's just a fantastic songwriter. He's a stylist as far as his singing goes. And he's an excellent, very underrated guitar player. And the band is one of the best bands ever. If you go to see them live, you won't be disappointed. They're one of the greatest bands ever in rock and roll. I don't know of a number that's lower than that that's available in the world. This one we're asking $225,000. This guitar was on the TV show It's Worth What. It's been, this has been in a lot of books, and You know, it's just a very important historical guitar.
That is so cool. Who was the last person to own it? Do you-
Joe,
Well, I've had this guitar for about 40 years, so this is part of my own personal collection.
I hope you have it insured.
I do, I do.
Very good.
Guys?
Son if I asked you this earlier.
But see, this is why it would be difficult
Guys?
to sell one of these guitars, because see, the serial number is right in here.
Ah.
So if you take that off, I mean, somebody could scratch it off. That
Yeah.
would look very funny if somebody did that. And, you know, there's certain markings, like you can look at the way the grain goes,
Right.
how this is going sideways. You know, if there's something like that that's out there, somebody could identify it just from the grain with a close-up.
Very
So
distinctive.
it's very distinctive, and each one of them is different. The wood was different in every one of these guitars.
How much would you say, guesstimating, of the 5 guitars that were stolen, what's the worth of all 5?
Well, I think the worth of all 5 is probably maybe $150,000, $160,000 as guitars. But when you add memorabilia value to them, then you're talking about a whole other story.